All right, let's create our first Android project. For that, we are going to use a template and do a set of configurations. So after we installed Android Studio, we got this welcome screen. Here we can create a new project. There are a bunch of templates, but we are going to use the empty activity template. And the reason for that is we are going to use something called Jetpack Compose, as we mentioned that, and we'll cover it later. And that is only used in this template. And we get a bunch of configuration options here. The name is the easiest, so of course is the name of the app. And I'm going to name it Android 101. Package name is the unique identifier in the Android ecosystem. So when you upload your app to Google Play Store, each app has a unique package name. And this is something that Play Store and also the Android OS can use to tell apps from each other. So this needs to be something completely unique to your app. Usually the pattern that is used is the reverse of the domain of a website. So for example, if a website is called calendar.google.com, the Android package name of it would be com.google.calendar. And for this example, I just used com.Shayan, my own name, and Android 101. And you need to choose a location to save the project. And then we have minimum SDK. This is the lowest Android OS that your app supports. So users who have devices using a lower Android version won't be able to install your app. And as you see, there are a couple of numbers and names here. So it can be quite confusing. We have API 24, we have Nougat, and we have Android 7. So let me break it down, explain why it is the way it is. This is a page of Android documentations, and I'll put a link of it in the description. It's quite useful. I always come back to it to see which version was which API number and which code name. So basically, we have 3 names and numbers here. API level is what is used by developers. So this is what developers would put in the code. They just need a number, so that's the simplest way. But what is codename? Codename is basically used only for marketing. So every year when Android releases a new version, they announce it, they shout it out that we are releasing Android 15, Android 14. That's pretty much basically for marketing, and it used to be not numbers, it used to be names of sweets and cookies and this kind of stuff. And that made it even more confusing. Luckily now, codename and version, they are kind of aligned. Version is what is used for the Android users. So if you ask your user what Android OS and what Android version you're using, they would go to their phone. In the About screen, they would see this number. And it's not always one number per Android codename. So you see, for example, Android codename Oreo had 2 different versions. Basically, it got an upgrade during the year. And this is actually how API level fell behind the Android version. So they started at 1, both of them. So Android 1.1 means API level 2, 1.5 means API level 3, and so on. This is how we ended up with API 35 for Android version 15 with the codename Android 15. Quite confusing, but just note that this API level is used for developers. That's what we will use in the code, and here is 24. Basically, you need to find a sweet spot, because the lower version you go, the more effort you need to put in the code to maintain those versions. And the highest version you choose, you lose more users. Here you can see, for example, it says your app will run on less than 1% of users if you choose API 35. By default, it was on API 24, and that supports 97% of the devices. So that to me looks good. I'm just going to leave it on 24. And then we have build configuration language. And you can see here we have two options, Kotlin DSL and Groovy DSL. This is where we enter the territory of languages. And that means I need to bring some slide to explain about the languages used in Android apps. So a couple of languages are used in general. One of them, Kotlin, of course, now is the official language for Android development for some years and is used by most of the apps there. Most of the logics, most of the code base is written in Kotlin. And then we have Java, which used to be the official language for Android development. And after Kotlin got introduced, it started to be deprecated. So companies have been migrating their Java code base to Kotlin for years. But it is still used in many apps. And then we have XML, or Extensible Markup Language. This is used in layouts to basically define the UI of the screens and also to define resources like themes, colors, strings. Good to know that this is also partly being replaced by Kotlin. So layouts are no longer written in XML in modern apps at least. And then we have Groovy. Groovy is used as a language for configuration files in Android projects. We will come back to it later, how these configuration files look like. But there you also have this choice to choose between Groovy or Kotlin. So that means also Groovy is another victim of Kotlin because companies have been migrating their configurations files from Groovy to Kotlin just because it's simpler. It gives you the code completion and benefits that you get from Kotlin. So basically this list looks like this. As you see, more and more of the code base is just becoming Kotlin and Kotlin. With that being said, for the build configuration language, I'm going to choose Kotlin, which is recommended as you see here. And you don't see a choice between Java and Kotlin here. That's because this template forces you to use Kotlin. But if you choose other templates, there you get this choice, Java or Kotlin, which brings the dilemma, which one you should choose. So first, let's check the benefits of Java. Java has been there for ages, and that means it has a huge community and adoption. So a lot of softwares are written in Java. It's very mature language, just because how much bugs have been reported, for example, or how much is being improved so far. And it's cross-platform. Basically, wherever there is a JVM machine, Java apps can run on it. So that means backend, that means on desktop apps and Android apps, of course. So this would be really tempting if you're already writing your backend in Java, if you already are familiar or experienced with Java, you would think I would just use Java for writing Android app and not have this learning curve with Kotlin again from another syntax, another language, which makes sense. But then let's see benefits of Kotlin. First, it's supported officially and recommended by Google for some years. It's modern, is more concise than Java, and is just easy to read. And it comes with a very cool tool called coroutines that gives you the ability to do asynchronous programming in a very nice and easy way, which we will come back to it later. And modern UI, so the Jetpack components that we mentioned is something that is only coming with Kotlin, but not with Java. With Java, you would need to use XML for the layouts for the UI of the screens. And Kotlin is also multi-platform, thanks to KMP or Kotlin multi-platform. So that means apps that are written with Kotlin multi-platform can run on Android, iOS, web, and desktop. But just note that this doesn't come out of the box if you just use Kotlin. You need to use Kotlin multi-platform, which is out of the scope of this course. And Kotlin is interoperable with Java. So that means Kotlin codes can call Java codes and vice versa. So that means you can have a code base that has Kotlin and Java side by side, which is the case for most of the app these days because they have been migrating their Java code base bit by bit. So that means Kotlin and Java, they can live side by side. And with that being said, for this course, I'm not going to use Java. Sorry for my Java friends. So I'm just going to use Kotlin and this template, which doesn't even give me the choice to use Java. So that's it for the configuration of this project. And then you press finish and voila. At first, it's importing a lot of dependencies, so this will take quite some time. And don't worry if you get errors at the end. Most probably you will for the first time when you create the project. We will tackle them later. So the key takeaways of this lesson is package name is your app's unique identifier. Languages used in most Android apps are Kotlin, Java, XML, and Groovy. And the minimum SDK is the lowest Android API level supported by your app. And so the action item for this lesson is to create a project using the template, this template, and choose a project configuration that works for you. And see you in the next lesson.